How's it going, guys? Coffee here. Today I wanted to showcase the deck that I use for farming tier 8 and my recommended strategy for farming tier 8 as you first get into it, or when you can first start doing it, as well as further on. The deck that I use here in question, as you can see, is I am using basically the quant cards for everything. So you want to be using the 7 quantity cards here. And then I also have an additional one here for Trial God of War. And then I'm using Recollection for an extra chance at getting rank 5 plus beacons. And then I'm running Lively because we are using a lot of Netherrealm Resonance, and I just want to ensure that I'm sustaining it and not having to go buy it. So pretty much my recommendation from my testing with tier 8 is if you look at the amount of quantity that you get from a tier 8 base map here, you get a drop quantity of plus 30%. If you are doing tier 8.4, you're getting a base drop quantity of 70%. When you are using Netherrealm Resonance on a map here, what ends up happening is you're getting 100% drop quantity. So pretty much my recommendation for my testing is that you should be doing whatever tier of T8 that you can sustain, always clicking this 5 times to get the maximum drop quantity on. So if that means it's tier 8.0 or 8.1, 8.2, 8.3, whatever it is. Like this character, when I'm running it in like a faster mapping mode, floats around like 70 million or 70 billion DPS rather. And I will still focus specifically on tier 8.3 just because I feel like 8.4 slows down enough to the point where it's not getting me enough rewards with the extra 10% drop that you're getting from it over something else. Because if you look at your build here, like if you're running drop pets, you're getting roughly like 100% quant. You're getting about 100% quantity, so you're getting 18% base, plus 10% additional. So we have 18% base, we have 48% additional flame fuel plus another 15, so that's like what, 55 plus 20, somewhere around there, so 75 plus an extra 10%, something like that. So you're getting pretty close to 100% quantity from just running quantity pets here, and then we're getting another 100% from the Netherrealm Resonance when we are upgrading the maps using Netherrealm. So the amount that you're getting between tier 8.0 versus 8.4 is only going to be an extra 40. So you're going from 230% quantity to 270%. So like the overall difference is about 15%. So when you start looking at that way in terms of like, okay, the difference between 8.0 and 8.4 is 15% more loot overall. That's what it actually comes out to, is 15% more. The total impact of doing a higher tier is much smaller, right? So the same thing from 8.8-3 to 8-4, it seems like the HP on the monsters goes up significantly. Like I'm talking the white and blue mobs have about 10 billion HP. So what you want to be doing is, again, basically farming whatever tier you can complete in like still relatively quickly, right? You still want to be doing your maps in basically 60 seconds. You want everything to still be, dying pretty much instantly while clicking this all the way up as much as you can without having to think about anything or even read any of the mods. That's pretty much what you want to be aiming for. Because if you are aiming for that, that's when you're going to be able to just maximize and cycle the most amount of maps as possible per hour. And then basically still get yourself the maximum amount of loot in an efficient manner without, having to struggle through harder maps. Because basically what ends up happening is, again, is you end up trying to do something that's a little too hard for yourself, then you have risk of either losing maps due to dying, or you just have risk of maps taking a really long time because you're having to spend a lot of time on specific rares and stuff. So typically I'll run 8-3 and I will run Ink AoE here just because my damage is so high that I can sustain that. Most things are dying in one hit anyways, but as you can see with Ink AoE in there, things are surviving a hit sometimes. It really depends on my mood, I guess. Sometimes I won't run Ink AoE, sometimes I'll just be running it pure damage, but for the most part right now I've been enjoying this so I could just watch more YouTube and pay less attention to what's going on in the map. In regards to your cities of Aeterna, I still pretty much almost never use like the 2x unless there is a legendary currency reward. That's about the only time I'll typically go for the 2x on things. It's some people like to do those, some people don't. I think it's personal preference, so kind of go with whatever is best suited for you or for your build. You are going to save a little bit of time by not doing the 2x all the time. Like your cities will definitely cycle faster just because you're standing in less white circles overall, you know what I mean? But it's all going to be personal preference in terms of like what you want to do or what you don't. Depends on what you have, right? I mean, this build's pretty quick at doing them, so I'm not that worried about it. But it is something that you can do. Additionally, there is something that people have noticed. I don't know if it's considered an exploit or not, so do it at your own risk. But when you complete a card set, the last set when you're doing a card set is going to have 100% additional drop quantity on it. So what ends up happening is you end up wanting to run a card. You want to end up basically running multiple ruins in that map if you can. So if you're at like say 5 of 6 on a card set and you start a city, you can select the tile. So select your 6 or 4 piece tile and then just escape out of it and don't actually go inside the ruins. And it will have you enter that ruins the next map that you go into. As soon as you click on the tower for the city, it will do it in the next map. So if you want to get an additional 100% quantity, you can basically kind of save that city or save that ruins for the next map. So you can double it up and do two ruins in one map. They haven't said whether or not this is considered an exploit or whether or not this is intended. So again, do it at your own risk. I don't think it's something, I'm pretty sure it's just like one of those things where it's like creative use of game mechanics, but I don't think that they'll ever ban anyone over it because it's extremely minor in terms of like the amount of, I guess, value you get out of it, right? I mean, yeah, you are getting a little bit more loot out of your one specific ruins, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really equate to that much more. But it's something you guys can do if you're trying to min-max the loot, so I figured to let everyone know. The other thing is in regards to the card decks, a lot of the times the offerings that they do have for the cards are very lackluster. In terms of like, it's pretty much just going to be like, oh, do you want increased gear quantity or do you want like a chance for God of Hunting to show up or something like that, right? If you look at the actual cards that are on there, let's see if we can actually, I'll find a zone here that has it. If you look at the actual cards that are on there, the offerings that you have, do I have a zone that doesn't have an offerings that I haven't done yet? I have to have one somewhere. Here we go. If you look at the card offerings, they're each going to have different amount of maps required to complete them. So this is 1 in 4, this is 1 in 6, this is 1 in 4. Sometimes you'll have like where all 3 offerings are bad. Like they don't really matter. They're not going to, you know, it significantly increase your loot. You don't really care about them, right? Sometimes you'll get 3 of these that are just chances for rares to drop legendary, which is most likely going to be junk. For those cases, you want to look at the total amount that it takes to progress them, just so that you can get that 100% additional drop quantity sooner, right? So if you can get 100% drop quantity every 2 maps, that's obviously better than every 4 or every 6. So to me, I recommend chasing those more so than anything else, just because the more quantity you can kind of stack on top of each other, the more loot you're going to see. So that's typically my approach for things. I'll let you guys see here this. So if you get this specific thing here, Trance, if you get the one that gives it a guaranteed chance to become Flame Elementium, it can be really good. So like sometimes I'll add compasses for that. I don't really think it's that important or necessary to do it for this one, just because it's just going to drop a bunch more Flame Sand, but you can juice it if you want to with compasses. I will typically hold those and I will just use the compasses and I'll save them for when I'm doing like Deepspace stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much where it's at. In regards to Deepspace things, typically what I do now, just because I've had so much money in taxes paid out, is I will run my Deepspace beacons when I get them to drop, but I won't go buy them personally. Like, I don't want to sell them just because the amount that I'm going to pay in taxes is going to add up. But I'll run them when I get enough to basically like complete a region. So then I'll just like go run a whole cycle of them on a specific map. But I don't enjoy doing the deep space maps as much, just because they take a little bit longer, and then you're just like spending more time looting and reading loot and checking memories and stuff. So not really my thing. But yeah, other than that, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments down below, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. And other than that, see you in the next one.